Who were the first investors? How did you get that first seed round done?
That's actually a really good story.
So I'm asking. Whoever they are, they're pretty stoked right now to be investors in this company.
I hope they are. We were going through the grueling pitching dozens and dozens of investors over a period of months, struggling to get any traction. This was especially in 2011. This was not like a
right
hot
after the
field.
financial crisis, and right after Maker was sold, whatever number of years earlier.
MakerBot sold several years after that.
Oh, sorry. They started a couple of years before that, right?
Yeah, they started a couple of years before that. But there was very little investment in this sort of hardware company. So we were struggling to get anyone to... Everyone, came and saw a demo of the printer working. They said, that's awesome. You guys seem really smart. I have no idea what this even is or how to invest in it or anything like that.
That's the problem with making something new. When it's that new, it gets people excited, but it also scares them from writing a check.
Yeah.
So what maniac gave you that first check and for how much?
So we were on literally the 50th investor meeting, something like that, over dinner at Legal Seafood in Harvard Square.
Yeah.
And going
Having
through the same
lobster roll, getting a little crab Louis.
Yeah, clam chowder.
Oh, nice.
And probably going through the same pitch. And we got to the end of the dinner. We knew we had done this enough times to know this one wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. And went back to the apartment that me and my co-founder David Craner were living in, and he got an email from a friend of ours with a retweet of an original tweet, the original tweet from @mcaper. And, clicked on it and saw that, that's Mitch Caper. We vaguely, know who he is. And the original tweet says, on the patio at Legal Seafoods in Harvard Square, overhearing two entrepreneurs pitching 3D printing. Anyone interested? Or something like that.
Whoa.
And
this is a great story.
And we're like, wow, that...
Mitch Caper, of course, the founder of Lotus 123.
Yeah, founder of Lotus Software. And I think what's really relevant for the story, he was... part of the PC revolution. He was part of taking mainframe expensive technology and making it accessible, part of making killer apps for businesses. Yep. So there's actually big parallel.
When it was pretty muddy, people were like, oh, we can buy a $5,000 PC. Now what do we do with it?
Exactly.
It was the same hobbyist thing.
So, I being a pessimistic, skeptical engineer, was just laughed about it and said, okay, whatever. But luckily, David is a much more opportunistic guy, and he said, let's email him.
Yeah, slide into the DMs. Let's go.
Yeah, and so he found his email address, sent him an email, and
Mitch sent you a check.
That was us.
Mitch and Freda sent you a check.
Actually, first he wrote back. He wrote back somehow in the middle of the night. I guess he was on California time or something like that, and he said,
or he's a winner.
Could be.
I mean, let's be honest. People who email back quickly and take decisive action are winners. And people who disappear for 3 or 4 days, they generally don't win as much.
That might be me, so I don't know.
You disappear for 4 days and don't check your email for opportunities?
I check it, but I can be slow to respond, yeah. Oh. I like to think about things.
Really? Well, see, if you're an investor, you got to respond quick.
Yeah,
you got to seize the day.
I don't think I'd be a good early stage investor.
No, probably not.
So he wrote back right away.
Snooze, you lose.
Actually, he wrote back right away and said, sounds interesting, but I know nothing about this, so I won't invest. So that was his quick response.
That's his quick no.
Yeah.
Now, did you take it as a no or an opportunity
he said,
get a yes?
Let's talk next time I'm in town. And next time he was in Boston to receive his star on the Kendall Square tech walk of fame.
Oh, is there such a thing?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're putting that up for me in Brooklyn. Yeah, down on Shore Road. It's 3 famous people from Brooklyn. Yeah, Steven Seagal, me, Ricky Schroeder.
So he came by our office and he listened to the story, and by the end of it, to paraphrase incorrectly, Mitch was like, this is just like it was when we were inventing the PC, and I want to get involved. Yep. And
all of a sudden, you got a Hyundai 250. He usually puts in a little 250.
Yeah, I think it was 300,000 that he put in.
Yeah, I know my investors.
And then at about the same time, Joey Ito, who was joining MIT as director of the Media Lab, right? Where we came out of.
You were in the Media Lab.
Yeah.
Tell people what the Media Lab is and why people are so enamored with it, why you chose it to spend 2 or 3 years of your life.
The Media Lab is a really interesting, unusual place. I don't really
Unusual is a
know-
good one, yeah.
I don't really know any other place like it in the world. So it's a kind of a research department at MIT that has 20, 30 professors and like 150 grad students. And what's unusual about it, one, super cross-disciplinary research. There's everything from like biotech to like robots making music and like everything in between, 3D printing. And another thing that's really unusual about it is a good chunk of the funding comes from this sort of corporate sponsorship model where
Right.
It's been called a country club for tech companies.
They each put $1 million, $2 million, $5 million in, and that's the budget.
Yeah, and then they put it in without a lot of constraints, and then the Media Lab sort of distributes it amongst those professors. So there's a lot more flexibility, a lot more open-ended research. It's generally centered around like human-computer interaction, but really broad.
Yeah.
Amazing tools, amazing smart people.
It's just fun to walk around the lab. I've been there many times where you just walk around, meet students, and they're working on their projects, and that's what the big Microsofts or Cisco's or whoever's writing checks do.
Yeah.
They walk around, they get inspiration. They don't have ownership in the projects, but they get to meet you early.
Yep, they get to meet you early. They have some kind of IP license, but that's really, they just want to be there.
Yeah. So you were working on the 3D printing there?
Not really. I was working on...
What was your project?
I was in a part of the Media Lab called the Center for Bits and Atoms, which is sort of like a hard tech group there.
I'm sure that was Nicholas Negroponte's thing, because his whole book, Being Digital, was the seminal book. I don't know if you remember this, you're a little younger, but back in 94 or 5, he wrote a book called Being Digital, and it was basically the book you handed to people who didn't understand what the internet was or what the possibility was here, and he just explained that atoms were going to be turned into bits, and that music was going to go from a record to being bits, and books would be bits. You know, stuff we take for advantage now. Photos would be bits. Movies would be bits, and you could move them.
The professor I worked with, Neil Gershenfeld, he was kind of one of the early professors in the Media Lab who had really pushed that. His kind of whole research group is around bits being more like atoms and atoms being more like bits, using things we learn from computation to change how we make things. So that's like what 3D printing is, and also vice versa, making computation reflect more how we make things. Anyway, interesting topic. But I worked on
Joey had a fund, so he invested too.
Yeah, he invested too. And with those two guys involved, then they told us to go up on AngelList, which was just like,
wow,
I was like only a year old, I think, at the time.
Yeah, I was the first syndicate. I mean, after Naval, like the internal syndicate, I was the first external syndicate. Yeah,
yeah. So we went up there. At that point, it was just basically like a profile page. Like there was no
page. It was like LinkedIn.
Yeah, no function to like support investing, and like. You know, people started rolling in after Mitch and Joey were involved, and we ended up with, I think, 16 different investors. That was mind-blowing at the time. I guess around here these days, this is nothing special, but to get
16 investors, pretty cool.
To do like a 45-minute call with some guy in Japan, and then him wire like $100,000 check later. I could not believe that happens.